Hi, good afternoon, and welcome to Bloop. Today, we're in the studio. It's a little different for us today. Normally, we go live on Tuesdays or Thursday nights on Instagram, but today, Laura's with me in the studio. We're going to be reviewing a book that she and I both read together, and this one is by Colleen Hoover, and it ends with us.
Yeah,
I'm going to get it confused. I'm all over the place, guys. I'm a hot mess right now. Anyway, so we're a little different because we're live in the studio today, but this is so that Laura and I can have a conversation about our likes and dislikes and our differences about this book in particular. And if you haven't heard of Colleen Hoover, you've been living under a rock because she's amazing, and I really like her. So we're gonna get right to it, guys. So,
but she might not be for everybody.
She might not be for everybody. No, she's for me for sure.
Yeah. So again, this format's going to be a little different on our lives during the week on Instagram. We like to keep things spoiler free, but we'll always share the content. We'll always share some things we liked, things. If we happen to dislike something, we'll share that too. But we keep it spoiler free. But today we're going to kind of like delve into discussion. This is like a little, as Rebecca was sharing, a little bit different of a format. But really quick, Bloop, Books on a Loop, all things books all the time. Here at Bloop, we feel like readers have a right to know what they're reading. So just, like informed consent.
Yes.
So what was I going to say? So, catch us on blooppodcast.com, and we are on YouTube, Rumble, Anchor, I believe, Spotify. So if you want to keep getting content ratings for books, then give us a little like, follow, comment, and we'd really appreciate that.
I was going to try to pull up our website.
Oh, was it not?
Well, yeah.
It's not working for you. Well, while Rebecca pulls up the website so she can kind of show you, I'm going to give you the little summary of It Ends With Us. This is the synopsis that you can find on the book, but just in case you don't want to, have to go finding it. Sometimes it is the one who loves you who hurts you the most. That's very true. Okay, so we have main character Lily. She's not always had it easy, but that's never stopped her from working hard towards what she wants in her life. She's come a long way from the small town of Maine where she grew up. She graduated from college. She fulfilled her dream of moving to Boston and started her own business. So when she feels a spark with a gorgeous neurosurgeon named Ryle Kincaid, Ryle, the name. Okay.
That was hard to get used to.
Yeah.
Ryle. I'm like, how do you pronounce this?
Yeah, everything in Lily's life suddenly seems almost too good to be true, right? We're kind of waiting for that other shoe to drop. And boy, does it. Ryle is assertive, stubborn, maybe even a little arrogant. I mean, has anybody else worked with doctors? I have as a cardiac sonographer, so, He's also sensitive, brilliant, and has a total soft spot for Lily. And the way he looks in scrubs certainly doesn't hurt. Okay, so he's like our love interest, our main character.
McSteamy, McDreamy.
Yeah. Lily can't get him out of her head, but Ryle's complete aversion to relationships is disturbing, right? So there's a little red flag. Even as Lily finds herself becoming the exception to his no dating rule, she can't help but wonder what made him that way in the first place. So we have a little bit of the, like, oh, maybe, maybe I can help him.
Yeah.
As questions about her new relationship overwhelms her, so do thoughts of Atlas Corrigan, her first love and a link to the past she left behind. Atlas. Okay. He was her kindred spirit, her protector. When Atlas suddenly reappears, everything Lily has built with Ryle is threatened. Okay. What we're going to do is we're going to give Rebecca's going to give you the content rating, the overall content rating, and then I'm going to talk about the sexual content rating.
So the overall content rating, and Laura and I both agree, this is adult 18 and up, because there's a lot of hard topics in this book. This book has domestic violence in it. It's got, and it goes into detail. Not too crazy, but there's some really rough scenes in there. So the content in it is mature. So we gave it a content rating of 18 plus.
Yeah.
There was other things in there too that
some coarse or explicit language.
Yes.
and then he said there's violence, nudity, some alcohol use. So, and then there's the violence, as Rebecca shared, that's beyond fade to black. So it can be
yes, and it's violence in childhood also. So
yes, childhood. Yeah.
Yes, there's childhood
Domestic
violence in childhood. So.
Yes. Okay, and then for sexual content, we gave this a sexual content rating of 3. Because there's multiple sex act references. The sex occurs around the midway point and after. You know, when we say midway point, we're talking about like the average length for that genre of novel. Sex scenes, they mostly focus on the thoughts and feelings instead of just the act or the primal desires and making it all about the act. There is a lot of emotion involved, but you're still with the characters through the scene. So that's why we felt it was better to give it a 3. All right, Rebecca. We are going to give you our star rating. This is on a scale of 1 to 5, and 1 being we hated it, 5 being it's the best book we've read, and well, it doesn't have to be the best, but we just thoroughly, really super enjoyed it. So we're going to write down what our ratings were, and we're going to compare. Are you ready?
Yes, ready.
Okay. Okay. All right, so we have a little bit of a disagreement here.
Yeah, we have a little bit of a disagreement.
All right, so Rebecca, share with us some of the things why you gave it a 5. What are some of the things you enjoyed?
I mean, really, this book, there wasn't much I didn't enjoy about the book. I think that it takes domestic violence to a different level in that, a domestic violence survivor will get, and I call him a survivor, but a domestic violence survivor will get a lot of questions on how can you stay? Why didn't you leave sooner? All those kind of questions, right? But this book kind of dives into it from the survivor's point of view, from when abuse starts to occur in the relationship, and also when abuse starts to happen in her childhood. So you kind of walk through this whole issue with Lily, and so I think that it takes a different look at domestic violence as far as you can kind of get into the mind of someone that's going through this.
Yeah, I think that was really okay. So there has been in the interwebs and on social media, like a lot of people are like, oh, she's romanticizing this type of a relationship. What are your thoughts on that?
No, I don't think she is at all, because there is a lot of romantic feelings that a survivor will have towards their abuser, because you love them. Yeah. You love them. That doesn't stop. Yeah. So you constantly have this conflict going on in your head of, well, maybe he'll change. Maybe he'll do this. Maybe he'll do, and they start to. Sometimes you'll have good days and bad days.
He loves me enough,
Yeah, but all of a sudden you'll start to go through this love bombing scenario, right? Where they're nice to you for a couple days, and you're like, and this is the roller coaster of abuse. Mm-hmm. So you've got really good days and bad days, and it's kind of it messes with your mind, because you're thinking, okay, well, maybe he's changing. He say he's sorry, so let's kind of move forward and all that. So you kind of get to walk through.
What I thought was interesting with her. Okay, so I gave it 4 stars because there was some things that were not my cup of tea. Generally speaking, I don't like, was a little too real for me. So I like to read it for escape purposes, mm-hmm. right? Get enough going on in my own life, health-wise, all of that. So I like to read and escape. I like my happily afters and stuff. But I do got to give her credit, right? So something for me that was eye-opening for me as somebody who has not experienced domestic violence in any sort. Mm-hmm. So she was able to bring me in and help me get into the mind of the main character, and really help. I feel like she did a great job helping readers understand how it can happen, but also how it can happen unexpectedly. Right. And so we get through, we get to see like some gaslighting happening, right? Mm-hmm. And feeling like, oh, the first time or two was like an unintentional accident, or somehow was their fault, or like, it was like, did that happen, or did I really trip, or... mm-hmm. things like that. So you're questioning yourself. But like you said, and then the feelings are really real there, because mm-hmm. it's not like well, at least in the case of this book, I can't speak obviously for everybody's experiences, that it was something that didn't happen every day.
No, doesn't happen every day.
So,
and sometimes there's a reason, like there's a reaction that the other person, the abuser, you could do something, and then all of a sudden, you know, they're reacting to something. So sometimes their reactions can kind of seem valid. So you're kind of confused, you know, but
well, they make
take it to another level.
Yeah, they gaslight you, making you feel it's valid, because it's never valid, right?
And of course, with abuse, it gradually gets worse. It doesn't, you know, but it's a gradual thing. It's not all of a sudden,
I wanted to be mad at her. I'm like, I don't want to understand this, because I just like, let's get everybody out of this horrible situation. I don't want to understand. I mean, I do want to understand, but you know what I mean? Like, it was really difficult, because when I read, I get really like connected with characters. Right. So I kind of experience things with them, which is why it also is hard for me to read things like this, because it's like I'm almost, not that I'm really living it, but I'm kind of in that headspace, right? So I feel like Colleen did a great job, because she was able to help me understand just how hard it is to separate yourself from that situation. And then I just want to point this out too, again, no spoilers, but there's like a safety issue at the end that a lot of people brought up. But considering the steps I feel like the female main character takes throughout the book, I believe she would have taken steps to make sure that it wasn't as much of a safety issue. We find out more in book 2, which we'll be discussing in our next show. But do you have thoughts? Do you believe too that she would have taken steps, or do you feel like her hands were tied and there was a safety issue? We can't go too detailed, but.
I mean, honestly, when I was reading this book, because I am a survivor, so I've been through this in childhood and relationships, so I'm that person. So really, I think that the author took liberties with the character, Lily, to kind of come out as best case scenario, because a lot of times you don't get out as quick as she did.
Yeah.
Which I really liked, that they made Lily smart enough to kind of figure these things out on her own. So no, I honestly don't even know what you're asking me, to be honest.
Well, we'll get to it then. We'll get to it then when we
you're
go
gonna
to
have to trigger my memory.
Yeah, we'll
by
get
something.
to it then. Well, let's talk about then really quick some other things I enjoyed. The relationship to me between friends was healthy, which was refreshing, healthy and supportive. Like nobody further gaslighting her, you know, and being like, oh, that can't, not Ryle, you know, not, you can't possibly. So that was refreshing to see. I also loved that Colleen took a note at the end to share with everybody and be vulnerable that like, hey, many of the scenes came from my real life. Like, you know, so that's why I kind of was like, well, I have a hard time feeling like that she's romanticizing this. I felt like it was very real.
I think it was so authentic.
Yeah.
Like I mean, it felt, I didn't mean to smack my microphone if you heard that, but I felt like I was you're telling my story almost. Like there were so many scenes that I was like I totally identified with it. So, and I was happy to see, because I think a lot of times domestic violence survivors are looked at like they're insane. Like, how could you possibly? Why didn't you know? Why didn't you look? I mean, it's like that saying of walk a mile in my shoes. You might have made different decisions, but who knows? Like, you don't know what you would have done in this situation. It's happening to you every day. And of course, you know, as a child coming up and watching this happen to her mother or whatever, you know, you're kind of conditioned to experience certain things and just deal with it. Yeah. So I was super impressed with the way that Colleen Hoover laid this whole book out, and you can see it to where this person is not stupid. Right. She's not crazy. She's not anything. Yeah. She's just trying to get through it. Yeah. Make healthy decisions, make good decisions for herself. Yeah. Scary decisions. She was a warrior in this book. I loved it.
So we're going to, at this point, just in case you haven't read this and you still want to, spoilers ahead. This is the part where we're going to start getting spoilery, because we're going to get like down deep with the characters and, you know, the setting and writing and, you know, all the things. So just kind of FYI. Okay. So Lily, do you want to share what your thoughts are about Lily?
I don't really have much to add to Lily's character. Like I said, I personally identify with Lily. So I felt she made a lot of great decisions, and like I said earlier, I think the author took liberties with this character to make it play out in the best case scenario. I mean, a lot of us don't have best case scenarios this soon. Like sometimes domestic violence survivors are in this for years, years and years, and 5 kids later kind of stuff, so. I loved the fact that, Lily had the courage to make really good decisions to get out of this relationship.
Yeah, I can't, I can't relate to her. But I think, like I said earlier, Colleen was able to help me be inside Lily's head a little bit, because I never judged people in your, that have experienced what you've experienced. But I do have that question. Like, I as growing up older now, I've met more people who have actually been in it. So they've got, they've shared, here and there. And you also learn more about like our justice system and like all the things, right? And how if kids are involved, it's a whole nother world as well. But you kind of like, you kind of do ask yourself that question, like,
what would I do?
What would I do? Like, how could I stay with that? So I felt it was interesting. First of all, I can't imagine what she witnessed as a child of her own father abusing her mother in front of her, raping her mother in front of her. And then the strength that it took to get her out of that situation and to still follow her dreams. But I do feel like that being able to have that experience with her father, she was able to recognize the patterns of abuse sooner. And I think that was kind of Colleen's out. Like she was able to, oh, well, this happened to my mom. I don't want to be there. So I'm going to set these boundaries. I really think it was courageous of her, as scary as it was, to lay out these boundaries and still follow through with them. Because I can't imagine, like, to have to tell somebody who is your abuser, like, no, you can't, they don't like to necessarily be told what's changing or what you're going to do.
No, and most of the times they're narcissistic and they don't believe that they did anything wrong. They always blame it on you.
They're justified. Yeah, they're justified. It's your fault. And I can see how that could get. And so I think with Lily, we see that, and I shared with you, even though she was strong and she had her boundaries, the first couple instances, she was questioning, did he like trip and crack me over the head with that stuff? Or like,
right.
It wasn't clear because it happened so quickly and she was flabbergasted. Like, it happened so quick, he was able to spin that story into like, oh, this was an accident.
Well, the first time was...
Yes, the first time was the
when
cooking.
He burnt his hands.
Yes.
And
before a major surgery.
She kind of started, and he's a surgeon, so he needs his hands, obviously. So he burnt his hands, and she kind of laughed at him, and he kind of backhanded her. Didn't he backhand her or something like that? Or did he push her or something?
But he made it seem like it was like a slip.
Yeah, and he was like, and it was like just a reaction, like quick. And I could see in that situation where, okay, yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
It takes being with a healthy individual though too, like coming out of picking wrong, like your whole life, seeing your father be this way with your mother, and then starting to get in these relationships with men, and you're kind of, it just kind of is normal, right? And then, granted, this is Lily's first relationship, really, outside of being with her father.
Well, she was a lot younger than Raul, right? He's already
right.
an accomplished neurosurgeon, and she's like just graduating, like starting a business, like so she's
inexperienced with kind of love. So I could see where she was kind of like, was that just a one-off?
Well, I think it's easy. You love somebody. I think it's really easy to be like, well, he's never hurt me before,
and you kind of make excuses,
and he's a good guy,
right?
And
he's never done this before.
Yeah, you give them the benefit of the doubt.
He doesn't even call me names. Like what?
Yeah, like we all messed up. Maybe really it was an accident. I think it was on her radar because of her past abuse. I think that was like a red flag for her. But I could see for many women how it could be easily passed off as, oh, he slipped and backhanded. Like it was like the whole.
But she did. At least she went there.
Went there
in her mind. Yeah. She thought.
But I think that was a tool.
Could this be a red flag
for best case scenario? Like you said, she set it up for best case scenario. Mm-hmm. Okay, let's talk about his sister then. Where I'm a little bit upset is I feel like she already knew this about Ryle, and nobody thought to mention anything to Lily.
Well, but
I like Alyssa a lot. I like that she has a blood relation with her brother. She loves him. They've been through something horrible together, which you guys all know because you're here for spoilers. But they witnessed their brother getting shot. Right? There was a gun accident at home. Ryle shot his brother by accident when he was a little kid, and she witnesses it. Right? So she has this whole history, but she still did not gaslight Lily. She supported Lily. She believed Lily immediately. But I'm still a little bit like...
But I don't think that a sister would tell, I mean, would you tell the woman that your brother is with?
Yes.
You would?
Yes.
Like, I don't know. Maybe she's not around Ryle a whole lot. And
I don't know if I would divulge
happy.
all of our secrets and what we've been through and all that right away, but I would definitely tell my brother, like, if you don't say something, and what are you taking, what steps are you taking to make sure you don't do this?
Right.
Maybe. Because I feel like we need to have a third party here being like, you need to be...
So family members of abusers, they also go into this whole thing of...
Yeah, not my son, not my
brother.
daughter.
My brother would never do that. My brother's never done it to me. You know, our parents weren't like that.
But she
Whatever.
seemed to know.
You make a lot of excuses for your loved ones in this scenario.
This is true, but I thought they kind of seemed to know.
But I'm glad that Alyssa believed Lily.
That was one thing.
And she stayed on her side.
Yeah, that was one thing I don't think happens a lot, like you just shared. I don't think family is as supportive.
And it depends on the family member, too. Like, I mean, some parents could be like, oh, no, we didn't raise our kid like that. Yeah. I'm sorry, you know, or not even acknowledge it. Yeah. Other people can kind of be like, oh, well, you know, and kind of stick by the person and stand up to the abuser and say, what the heck are you doing? Like, why would you treat people this way? So I loved Alyssa's character. She was very supportive.
To speak on like family members, bringing in Jenny Bloom, Lily's mom, right? So a lot of people wonder, I feel like you could see the difference between Lily's experience and Jenny's. Jenny didn't get out of it, like you said. Right. So hers wasn't quick. It was from till death do us part, right? And then she was finally freed from it. So I feel like the huge difference was Lily, we see what happens when you have a support system and people who believe you, right? And then when you don't have a support system, you're completely dependent on your spouse who has a lot of power in the community, and you have no support system.
Yeah, because her husband was a cop. Lily's dad was a cop.
No.
I thought.
He was he was in politics.
Oh, sorry. Never mind. Not a cop.
But he had relationship with law enforcement.
So he even if she had said something,
right?
Like nobody was going to help her.
Right. He had a lot of power. She didn't have many options. She didn't have a support system with her. So you could see what happens.
Right. But also the generation too.
That too.
Like the generation of that time, like my mother, for instance. I mean, like, she grew up in a religious household, you know, like, we could be on this subject for days, but anyway, like, my mother didn't have a whole lot of support, and also, having the religious background that she did, she believed that marriage was forever, like, you should stay no matter what, blah, 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 you know, so she never left, and no one helped my mom, and it was a generational thing, too.
Like, but your dad had power, too.
Not like
a little bit.
Not like Jenny Bloom's dad.
No, but I mean,
my dad.
He was still an authority figure that was respected in.
Well, yeah, and my dad threatened her, like, I'll take her out of the country, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So I mean, so my mom was just afraid a lot, but she had no her mom didn't help, like all of that, like there was just friends of my mother's, the church, all that kind of stuff. Nobody came in. Yeah, my mom would go to the pastor and be like, hey, can I? It's shit. And this is all coming out now. I see a lot of people talking about that whole thing with the church and religious abuse, really. I mean, like, because...
Which is not what the Lord would want.
No, God would not, that is not why he created...
Marriage, yeah.
Marriage, and he would not want anybody to be in an abusive relationship. That's... not honoring your spouse. It's not loving. It's not any of that. Yeah. So no.
So let's talk about a bright spot.
I talk with my hands a lot, guys.
No,
sorry.
it's okay. I'm trying to tell her because I keep hearing thump, thump, and then she keeps like. Hitting the table. Okay, so let's talk about a bright spot, Atlas. Okay, he broke me. That broke me. Poor Atlas. Okay, so Atlas, her first love interest, the first person she loved, cared about. It just really shows Lily's character, like how giving she is. Sometimes you see kids who are really tainted by their experiences. I was a high school teacher, and it's really sad when a kid does not have, they're just not shown love, and they're told like basically you're not worthy. Nobody cares about you.
Right.
You there's no purpose for you.
Right. Atlas was kicked out of his home.
Yeah, he's homeless, and Lily takes him under, and he's a perfect example. So for me, he's a perfect example of when life can be really ugly and really hard, that we do have a choice in the way we respond, in words, in our actions. I'm not saying it's easy. I'm just saying I have never met a human being to walk this earth who hasn't been through something really hard.
Right.
And we all have a choice in how we choose, to respond to that.
Yeah.
And I really commended and liked.
Yeah.
Atlas
was sort of living across the street from Lily in this abandoned house, and he was the stinky kid in class. Like, he'd get on the bus and he'd stink because he wasn't able to take a shower. And like, she gave him food. She let him shower at her house. She gave him blankets when it was freezing outside. She cared for him when he got sick, all of that stuff.
And she's like 16.
Yeah, and she had to keep this away from her parents.
17.
I think they were like juniors.
I think he was 15,
I think,
and then he didn't do anything with her till she was 16.
But he graduated before she did.
Yeah.
So she still had like a year left to go.
Yeah. I do know some people have a problem with that too, the ages of before they had sex. But he waited till she was 16. I think which is in a lot of states his legal age of consent.
Mm-hmm. But they were only a year apart also.
But they made it seem like he was like predatorial. Just because you turn 18 doesn't, like, this is a hard situation. I taught high school, right? So you have kids who are 14 through 18 who are all lumped together, and they're only developmentally a year or two. I mean, granted, there's a bigger difference between a freshman and a senior, right? That's a problem. But
I always dated guys that were older than me. Like at least by a couple years.
I always did a year older, at least.
Yeah. Like, I was a sophomore dating a senior, so.
Yeah. But I'm just saying, I feel like it's interesting that people are getting so tore up about that, but that's kind of culturally, societally, how we've literally pushed them together, and it's like, here, spend your whole day together, and then don't let any feelings develop between the classes. Like, it's not realistic.
The problem comes when, the female is, a lot younger, and then you have the male goes on to be 18, 19, 20 years old, and they're still in a relationship, and then, my husband and I are 5 years apart, so that's kind of creepy if you think about it, like when I was 13, like,
Whoa.
So anyway, but we weren't dating at that time, obviously, but I mean, a normal age gap is, 5 years is a normal age gap.
When you get older and you get to a certain point.
Right, but not at
that point. But I feel like it was interesting to me, that's what people were choosing to get so incensed about.
And it also depends on your state.
For a 1 year age gap.
Yeah, 1 year is not bad.
Was it 1 year or 2?
I thought it was 1, maybe 2.
I just feel like it's just not unheard of, and it wasn't a situation, if you really read the book, it's not a predatory thing. No, but some parents do get crazy and they start shouting out about statutory rape and whatever. Like I said, I worked at a high school. There was parents who didn't like their daughter dating some guy, and they waited till he turned 18, and then they went after him. So now this guy's got a record, and now they've gone on and gotten married, but and they probably have 5 kids and can't pick up their kids from school because he's a sexual predator or whatever. Yeah, they're both in high school, so I just feel like we need to be careful on what we are. Yeah. Like I could see. I don't, Now we have the Romeo and Juliet law in Florida. Which is? So, which means if you're past 16 and you're dating someone that's, I think, 19, 20, I could be wrong, you fall within that Romeo and Juliet law to where it's not... Like if you met before a certain age? Yeah, if one party crosses past
the age of 18, as long as there's a pre-established relationship prior to that person turning 18 years old, it cannot be considered statutory rape.
That's the component I thought. That's the component I was asking.
It's a 3-year max.
Yeah,
3-year span. I'm
difference.
sorry.
That's what I thought.
So,
okay.
Depending on your state, because other states could have. I don't know about other states. I just know about Florida.
Right. Okay. Sorry, Ron's talking in our ear. Ron, how are we doing on time, bud? There's no clock.
Yeah, another clock.
Okay. So really quick, let's just go through on what we feel like about her writing, because we're going to be wrapping up here in a second. And then we're going to come back. You can join us next week to talk about It Starts With Us, which is the next book in this duology. Gosh, maybe we should just talk about this. Were there any scenes in the book that really spoke to you? For me, there was something so difficult, and it's the scene where Ryle bites her over the tattoo that she has that she got
because of
Atlas.
Yeah.
And he went through her diaries and was privy to know why she got that tattoo, and then for him to try to bite it out of her. I can't even. This is why these types of books are hard for me to read, because I was in the moment. I could see that happening. It's very real life.
And see, it didn't do anything to me because that's minor, in my opinion, from what I've seen in my life.
It's not minor. That is stressful.
Yeah, I mean, he was.
Think about the pain. I mean, this is not you have a baby. You've been bit.
I've been bit, yeah. Yeah, it hurts.
When you're nursing and stuff, I think about what it would be like to really be chomped on.
The biting the bitey part didn't really bother me as too much as to why he bit her and in the target area.
Both of it, all of it. It's horrid.
Target. I mean, behind the emotional part of it was more emotional for me because it was more like you intended. It wasn't like in the heat of the moment you bit me because I punched you in the face or something.
No.
But it was intentional.
All of it.
Very intentional to go right after the tattoo that she had gotten in college or something to remind her of
in that scene
Atlas.
Trying to rape her.
Yeah.
I don't remember why he didn't. Something happened.
I think she passed out.
She got hit. He hit her. She had a concussion.
And then he all of a sudden started crying, and I'm so sorry.
Yeah, it's like he snapped out of it. But again, I feel like that necessarily was a best case scenario, because I don't feel like you can snap out of your rage that much just because you see the person you're hurting crying, or that would have I don't know. Do you know what I'm trying to say?
It happens though.
Okay.
I mean that's kind of normal.
Oh, it is.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. It is because. I mean, some people would argue that maybe the person, in Ryle's case, okay. I mean,
the bastard.
Right, you've got this whole backstory with him, and poor Ryle, he saw his brother shoot himself, or he accidentally shot his brother, or whatever.
And killed him. Yeah.
Boo hoo. Okay, great. That's a wonderful. Not a wonderful. It's a sad story, right? But it's a wonderful excuse to use to act like a jerk and continue to act and treat people the way he's treated, and he uses it as an excuse every time.
Yeah, every time. But my thing is, he was in therapy for a long time, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And he wasn't fixed. Why are you dating?
Well, at the very beginning it says that he wouldn't date because, he didn't want to date because he had this thing, he had this, whatever.
I know, but
so he thought he was fixed.
Sorry, honey, you are a danger to society. You just can't.
And then the whole jealousy thing, with Atlas is what brought this rage out in him.
Yes.
And it was always, anytime they fought,
But if it wasn't Atlas, it would have been somebody else 5 years down the road.
It would have been, oh my gosh, you're sitting in traffic and you looked over at that guy, do you think he's cute? Mm-hmm. I mean, it would
that client has come in, for flowers for people in his life 3 or 4 times. Why is he keep coming to your flower shop?
I mean, it would have just been, this is what I'm saying. Excuses. Yeah. Excuses. Yeah. Excuses. I mean, he never takes responsibility, really. He'll take the responsibility, but it's all because of this. Yeah. I did this because of this, or It's
Okay.
not just like, so to me, it's normal. What you talked to me earlier about a
Yes.
safety issue.
So we're gonna close out really quick. We're gonna close out, and then we'll
sorry.
start it next week when we talk about at the very end of the book. We discover that Lily's pregnant, right? And she has the baby. She allows Ryle with her during delivery, and then they're looking at their baby girl, and she looks at him and says, "I want a divorce." Okay. However, he's like, "Please don't take her from me." Legally, she can't, right? Because she never prosecuted him and reported him or any of those things. So legally, that's the baby's daddy. So he gets custody to some extent. So,
well, she would have to take him to court and go through all those channels
right.
and all that.
But my thing is, so people didn't like the safety issue with that, and I remember asking you about that because I was like, "What the hell, Rebecca? Like what the?" So we had this discussion, and that's why I was like, okay, looking at Lily's character and all the steps she's taken for her boundaries and what she's doing, I'm pretty certain because we didn't know in this book. So next week we're going to get more involved and more discussion in that. So we're going to close it here. So tune in next week for book 2. It starts with us, right? Where we're gonna start with that.
Yes,
I think that's
because
good.
there's a lot of
There's a lot.
a lot of differences.
I was mad. I was real mad.
Yes, there's a lot. And don't forget to like us on Facebook, Instagram, Spotify. Well, you can listen to us on Spotify,
Rumble,
all
the things,
TikTok.
all the places.
Please subscribe to our YouTube channel if you haven't already, at blooppodcast.com. And
all right.
Until then, we'll see you next week.
See you next week.
Bye.